Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old, to history, to anecdotes, to really wherever our whims take us. Harleen, the origins of Harley comic. I've had this comic for a while, but the amount of things I want to say about it has daunted me, but now is the time. I'm gonna tell you all the things, so strap in, it's gonna be a long one. Also, I cannot do a New York accent, so be forewarned, for forewarned is forearmed. Get a drink, get comfy, if it's cold where you are, get a blanket, not a sweater, a blanket. We're talking hardcore cozy. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please subscribe and join this comic-loving adventure. Harley Quinn has a really interesting history, created initially as a throwaway character for an episode of Batman the Animated Series, specifically the episode Joker's Favor. However, people would respond favorably to her, so favorably that she would become a recurring character. Then eventually she would be given an entire backstory, and then make the unique jump from another medium back into comics itself. Nowadays, many fans cannot imagine, or even in some people's cases have never known, a DC universe without her. However, there has been a definite shift in how Harley is portrayed. It's been ongoing over the years, but this comic brings it into stark relief. This comic lovingly allows Harley to be fully fleshed out, a character with agency, which is far more in line with her original portrayal than many fans seem willing to believe. And we're gonna dive into that as we explore Harleen. Harley's story has always been about much more than the Joker, even if he has been central to it. And this comic is going to remind everyone of that if you forgot. Probably didn't. I don't know what you remember or don't remember. Everything pretty much in this comic, aside from lettering, is done by Stepan Chayich. That is the pronunciation he gave for his name over on Tumblr, and I am eternally grateful. On top of drawing gorgeous comics, he also draws beautiful fan art. It's so good. I could get lost in all of this art. Do you need a crossover of Wonder Woman and Tomb Raider going on an adventure? Yeah, you do. He can also only draw people as ludicrously attractive. Must be a blessing and a curse. So beautiful. Everything. You'll see. Book one. Go. We open on a nightmare, Harley traversing this winding road in the fog. Fog is never a good thing in fiction, or really in real life. She's talking about how this is a nightmare she's had before, but the monster is different. While she alludes to the monster having been the Joker, now there are menacing bats everywhere. As she approaches the Joker cowering in fear, we see the monster. Look at the menace of this nightmare Batman, and also at the use of comic paneling, a dynamic use of space that feels unique and draws your eyes to this creature. Leave him alone.
Cast him away. He is beyond help.
No, I can do it.
Be it on your hands then, Doctor.
Harley finds herself comforting the Joker as the dream takes on a distinctly different tone. Yes, this dream is different. For the first time, his face is not monstrous. He smiles, and I make the worst mistake of my life. I smile back. The panels shatter as we realize that this is Harley recalling her own descent into becoming Harley Quinn. And it's not an, oh, woe is me kind of deal. It's just a matter of fact, this is what happened. These are the decisions I made, these are the mistakes, and these are the things I don't really seem to regret. My story's the one where the girl dances with the devil, and he takes her with him on the long road to hell. The road starts, as they often do, with good intentions. Harley is a young, but not that young, aspiring psychiatrist. She's trying to make a mark on her field. She has a theory about chemical brain responses and empathy, a belief that as a defense mechanism, the brain produces distancing chemicals utilized in, say, wartime situations, but that these chemicals can become overproduced. The mechanism can break, and hence sociopathy may not only be identifiable, but reversible, something to be unlearned. In short, she believes that rehabilitation is genuinely possible and mappable. However, she's also a bit nervous and self-conscious and not entirely able to convey her ideas as forcefully as she would like. For example, she's quite obviously put off when she sees that people aren't really paying attention. Some are checking their watches, some are yawning. It throws her off. She wants to do a study of the inmates of Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Prison, a comparison. This is to see if they can identify deteriorating empathy and create a brain map using these more extreme cases. Harley is convinced that she blew it, that the presentation was just a complete wash. So she goes out drinking with a friend, determined that maybe it's time to just start a new career path, or just, spend a night being really down in the dumps. I was a 30-year-old psychiatrist, single, one friend, no pets. My family was 6 states away. I liked the idea of the stars having my back. That would mean at least one person did. Unfortunately, that was pure wishful thinking. You see that right there? That was an excellent exposition dump. That was just a list of facts about Harley, but it was done for a purpose. It was to elicit emotion and also to let us know narratively where Harley is. It sets her up more as a character. She's disconnected. She's lonely. She wants to feel like someone cares about her. She feels like she's stagnant in her life. Nothing is progressing. What does she do about it? Why won't something change? All of these sentiments flesh her out as a character, and they also make what we all know is about to happen between her and the Joker more understandable, more nuanced. That's a key word. You know that's my favorite thing. As Harley walks home, suddenly the streets of Gotham explode and she finds herself face to face with the Joker. Thinking back on it now, I can't help but wonder, if I had read that horoscope, what would it have said for that day? Destined, me and him. The man I would soon love. I love the paneling, that paralleling of them, two halves, it's very thematic. As he holds her at gunpoint, we see her whole life flash before her eyes in a very creative use of the paneling space. Her on one side, him on the other, and all of the panels laid out between them. It's something you can do in the comic medium. It's really effective. This was designed to be read, not to be adapted. This is a huge difference to, say, the paneling in the Abrams Spider-Man comic, which is static, storyboard, movie. This comic plays with all the things that it can. We see how Harley hasn't always known what she wanted to do and how she kind of fell into being a therapist or psychiatrist even though she is good at it. How she has a history of impassioned choices, such as the affair she had with one of her professors despite having amazing grades. How that choice defined her, much as the one she would make later with the Joker would. Also, there's a callback panel to people calling her Harley because everyone gets a ride, but that's actually a reference to an earlier Harley motorcycle joke from the Batman animated series itself, where she comes up in lingerie to the Joker and asks him if he'd like to ride his Harley. Wouldn't he like to rev her up? You know, one of those jokes that flies over your head when you're a kid, but when you get older, you're like, oh my. All of her life leading to this encounter, destiny, fate, things she believes in despite not really wanting to. You be careful out there, ma'am. Gotham streets are dangerous at night, don't you know? We also get panels from the Joker's perspective, ones that showcase that he's intrigued by her, but the manner is up for interpretation.
Hey boss, how come you let her live?
Because her eyes made me a promise, Sam.
A promise?
Yes. They promised to see me every night. In her dreams. Harley ends up on the streets of Gotham, trapped there after Batman engages with the Joker. And then she finds herself frozen in place, drawn to watching the fight. Especially as midway through, the Joker is thrown against the wall, bleeding, and takes a moment to smile at her before he is tugged back in by Batman. Yoink. This panel, that is all. Perfection. I watch the madness. I watch them. Because I can't look away. Also, important point, when she's talking about the madness, she's talking about both of them. This highlights how she's gonna come to feel about the two of them. Harley finds herself amidst a crowd watching the end of the fight, the climax, as Batman finally beats the Joker. She's super into it until something shifts. And again, we have a beautiful panel of the hatred that the people have for the Joker, showcased in the Joker's smile, dripping blood, a validation of his worldview, a worldview that Harley can see and share. For the first time ever, I truly feel it. I feel a twinge of something unhinged about this city. It is the stuff of nightmares. Harley is haunted by what has occurred with her, but of course in true Gothamite fashion, she tells no one. She just goes about her life, goes back to work, which is terrible because she works with some of the colleagues who were with her in college, and so they know all about the professor incident and they will not let it go. They're convinced she's sleeping her way at the top. This only intensifies when she gets an amazing opportunity. It turns out that the man who appeared bored at her lecture wasn't at all. He was really interested. He just wanted to hurry up and get to the end so that he could pitch her. He works for Mr. Wayne. He's actually Lucius Fox, and he wants her to do her research. He's there on behalf of Mr. Wayne, who also happens to be funding a bunch of stuff with Arkham, so he can get her in there too. This is a really cool way to have Batman in the story and impact it without making him the focal point. We also get some hints of the guilt and responsibility he will end up feeling towards Harley. I mean, we as readers know why he's funding her research. It may shock you to hear this, but Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Bruce Wayne's parents are dead. I'll give you a minute. Harley is thrilled and feels her life is finally starting to turn around. A fresh start, new people, new friends, new job. It's all on the up and up. There's another stunning panel of her walking into Arkham while the shadow she casts is that of Harley Quinn. This comic is full of little touches like that also give it reread value. What else do you need to see? As she gets set up in Arkham, the process is halted by the Joker, who is also being returned that same day. And he notices her. Would it help if I said I was sorry? And he has a reaction to seeing her, and it's kinda hard to read. Back then, it felt like nothing more than a terrifying coincidence. I mean, we both arrived on the same day, and so the starts of their days are eerily paralleled, with her being told not to smile while he is told to smile. It's all very disconcerting. Harley meets with Dr. Strange, who is extremely dismissive. He thinks that her research is nonsense and idealistic, and that she is going to disrupt the flow of the actual work that he is doing there. So basically, he gives her a room and is like, go, do your thing. I don't care. He can't even remember her name, and her name is misspelled on the door. Just all the disrespect. Harley decides to dive right into interviewing extreme cases, but also at the same time ignoring the Joker, putting him at the bottom of the pile. She is still having nightmares about him after all. And we get treated to her sessions with the likes of Poison Ivy, Zaz, the Riddler, etc. And it's all really interesting and in character. Still, the nightmares are getting worse, so Harley decides to try and confront the problem by demystifying him. And to do this, she's gonna watch over a bunch of his interview tapes. So she starts watching them, then gets a parade of all the different origins that he likes to tell. One video after another, lie after lie after lie. It was all an act, a comedy routine for his own amusement. I found my fear replaced by annoyance. In a way, it was an improvement. And then she finds a tape where she thinks she really sees him. Him, the man she met on the street, the one who held her at gunpoint, the one she believes is the real Joker. We're all monsters in a civilized cage. It just takes the right kind of pain and fear to break the lock. Just give those bars a good push. Outside of your cage is my Gotham. It is the city of monsters. It's an honest place. Harley thinks she sees something there, something useful to her research and her purposes. But also, she's still terrified to interview him, as she also feels something else. A pull. So she keeps avoiding it, and the dreams just get worse and worse, and eventually she has to drink to avoid them. And then she gets a call from Harvey Dent that changes everything. She goes to meet him, and he hates her research. He is completely against it. He feels that Bruce Wayne is being taken advantage of because of his past, and he wants her to stop. He thinks that she's a danger to the city, that her work could make getting Gotham super criminals off the streets even harder. Also, yes, he has a coin, and it's double-sided. 2 heads. He uses it to illustrate his belief that there is no good in these criminals, that they're the same on both sides. She, of course, completely disagrees with him and is galvanized to action because of him. It's kind of funny, all our big words and moralizing, and yet within 5 months, we would both become murderers. So she goes to see the Joker, and he recognizes her after some scare tactics. The stories, I've read up on them. As it turns out, all at the same time, you were a rich mobster, thrown into a vat of acid, a failed comedian, abused by your father, mother, brother, and a matron of an orphanage that doubled as a sweatshop producing golf balls. But see, now you ruined it. I could have told you stories like those as well. Lies. Perhaps, but interesting lies. I prefer lies of illusions. Bit of makeup, a whole lot of theatricality. Stories, then. Monster stories. I'm interested in those. You're in the right place. Please, doctor, call me Jay. Very well, Mr. J. I love this comic. It is by far the best Harley comic I've ever read, and I have read all of them because she is one of my favorite characters. She's not just back here for no reason. And this story sees all of her and breaks down her relationship with the Joker and herself in such a multifaceted way. It even does the whole she sees the real him in a clever, non-tropey manner. This in no way does what many comics often do, which is cast aside all of this for a reductivist and simplified Harley victim, Joker monster, Joker bad, Harley good, Harley escape, Harley empowered woman. Harley's tale can definitely be one of empowerment, but it was still one even while she was with the Joker, not because she was with him, but because she's a complete character. She's a strong female character because a true strong character is one that is fully fleshed out, even if they are flawed. Harley has always stood out as a character. Her narrative forced the reader or viewer to ask questions. Why would someone want to be with a monster? What did that say about her? You felt bad for Harley, but at the same time acknowledged she was no innocent shrinking violet. She was also not judged overly for going back to the Joker, even though everyone knew it was a bad idea. A rarity in tales of toxic relationships, which oftentimes prefer a much simpler, oh no, she didn't know what she was getting into, she's in over her head. Which, yes, that is a tale worth telling too, but we've seen that tale more often. Harley is something we don't see very often. Someone going in with their eyes wide open. It acknowledged that they both got something out of the relationship. It was one of the most nuanced portrayals for that reason. It showed that there could be affection, lust, potentially love, and something that really wasn't working. And also that she did know him better than anybody else, but was that a good thing? Paul Dini, her creator, had said that everybody's seen the Joker laugh, but only Harley has seen him cry. All of this was a sentiment that actually many abuse survivors could identify with, at times far more than the kick him to the curb and never look back ethos, which is perceived as more empowering, a better way to tell the story, as Harley came to be forced into a role of representing all battered or abused women. Hence, she had to leave, and leave forcefully, or be a bad example. This despite the fact that as a murderer several times over, of her own volition, oft times, as many of these happen after she's left the Joker, she's never gonna be a good example or good role model. Next up, this comic isn't afraid to depict the lure of their relationship, and look at the fact that while the Joker is manipulating her, he is also interested in her in some capacity. In modern discussions, it is oftentimes common to hear things that if you depict anything even remotely positive or slightly attractive about this relationship, that you are romanticizing it, that you are part of a huge societal problem, that you are contributing to hordes of women willingly walking into abusive relationships or staying in them. However, for those who enjoy this relationship, say in a transformative fandom such as cosplay or fanfiction level, that's not what they're getting out of it. There may be a small few who are into that aspect, but the vast majority are not. They are gravitating to something entirely different. The positives of the relationship and leaving behind what they don't like, just as most fans do with all canon. What they are gravitating towards is the us against the world dynamic, the I found my true match, my true self was awakened, and they're enjoying those bits. However, as is often the case with canon, it matters when fans want it to, and oftentimes for their own purposes to prove a point. There are also many other questions that need to be posed when one is talking about Harley and the Joker. Is Harley and the Joker the only relationship example a person will ever see? Is it so powerful it will override all others, including real-world examples? If a person does take quote-unquote the wrong message from it, does that mean something has to change, as one cannot control how someone interprets a work? The positive aspects of this relationship have value, as do the negative ones, and you can get many reads on it. That's part of why it has endured for so long, and why it has been depicted so many ways, and why so many of these varying depictions can seem equally credible. Because they can be. That's part of what makes it so strong and why its legacy, as well as Harley's, has endured. She's applicable and relatable. It must also be acknowledged that he does change her. After everything happens, she doesn't go back to being the person that she was before. She likes who she has become, and who she has become is not necessarily the best person, and that needs to be examined. This isn't a clear-cut, innocent, pure heart, lured by monster. That's part of it, but it's not all of it. Her classic story has merit, and this comic highlights that. Some will dismiss classic Harley outright and say there is no empowerment to be found, and if you like it, you hate women or are an abuse apologist and want all women to be hurt. To which I say, nay, there is a separation between fiction and reality, and one's enjoyment therein. Escapism. Just because one can take lessons from a story or character and make them applicable doesn't mean that one will. It also does not mean that all critical thought ceases, that people are sponges and sheep, incapable of examining things from multiple perspectives. For if that was the case, there would not be people decrying this relationship in the first place. And there is another question. Should Harley be forced to represent anything other than herself, the character of Harley Quinn? Modern Harley has her merits and can be an extremely fun, engaging character. but so can classic Harley. Neither should be dismissed outright. And classic Harley should not be thrown to the side because she made some bad choices or has flaws. The fact that she is flawed is a strength of her character on a meta level, even as it is a canonical weakness. Also, all of her relationships should be measured against themselves, not against her and the Joker. When people measure the relationships against her and the Joker, ultimately they all end up getting pedestaled. And as a result, many can get a pass or be written incorrectly or uninterestingly as a result, just because they want them to be better than her and the Joker. And also, you are allowed to write unhealthy or taboo relationships. Fiction and narration are spaces for all stories. At least that's what people keep saying until it's a story they don't like. Sometimes ideas make us uncomfortable or lured in we don't want to be. And that's something to be explored and embraced, at least in my humble opinion. At her strongest, Harley makes you think. And this comic is a loving ode to her, the questions that she makes you ask, and the entire Batman mythos, all so lovingly drawn. It's earned a place as one of my faves. What do you think of it? Do you love the art as much as I do? What are your thoughts on Harley? I, for one, can't wait to be told to check my internalized misogyny, as sadly sometimes happens when I talk about Harley Quinn. You know? It's a girl here reading, getting ideas and thinking. I'm Sasha, and please do all of the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. And I will see you again soon. That was long. Bye.